Hi, I'm Talith, and today we're looking at the best way to farm overland testing stations. We'll look at what difficulty is best to run on, what stations give the best loot, and what the best strategy is when first starting out. I'll also share some new and updated spreadsheets for weapons, armor, and testing stations, so you can theorycraft for yourself. The testing stations we're talking about today were added in the Chapter 3 update and can be accessed from the overland map. The chests at the end of these stations have a chance to drop graded weapons, armor, and augments. The higher the difficulty, the better the chance at getting higher grade items, with grade 5 being the highest currently attainable. When you first enter a testing station, you won't have access to all the difficulty levels. The difficulties unlock sequentially, so you need to beat difficulty 4 to access difficulty 5, and so on. The maximum difficulty you can attempt is equal to your faction level, but when you reach faction level 20, the difficulty is uncapped. The difficulties get progressively harder the higher you go, but the scale for loot and difficulty is not linear. Because of this, I recommend farming levels with the biggest jump in loot quality chance. This will allow you to find a nice balance between how hard it is and how good the reward will be. For grade 1 gear, the first step up in power from regular tier 6 items, I recommend farming difficulty 5. You can see that the difference between 4 and 5 is huge here, with a 56% increase in graded chance. Enemies only get about a quarter more health than they had at difficulty 4, so this loot increase is a substantial gain. For grade 2 gear, we see another large jump in loot chance from 7 to 8, a 32% increase, so I recommend difficulty 8 for grade 2 gear. Grade 3 gets a 20% increase from 11 to 12, so I recommend farming difficulty 12 for grade 3. For grade 4, you can see the increase for better graded gear has really started to shrink, but we see a 70% increase from difficulty 14 to 15, so I recommend 15 for grade 4 gear. Finally, we get to grade 5, the highest grade you can get right now. There is a relatively large jump from 18 to 19, a 19% increase, bringing the chance for gear to be grade 5 to 25%. This is why you see a lot of people running 19s, because high difficulties are adding less than 1% per level. It's important to keep in mind that after difficulty 20, the scaling for enemy health and damage becomes much less severe. For example, a difficulty 40 enemy will have about 55% more health than a difficulty 20 enemy. However, if we compare a difficulty 20 enemy to a difficulty 10 enemy, the difficulty 20 enemy has 5 times as much health. I'll go over a spreadsheet I made at the end of the video to help you work out if it's worth pushing past 19. To recap so far, if you're struggling to clear the early difficulties, I recommend pushing to the biggest jump in drop rates. This means targeting difficulty 5, 8, 12, or 15. Difficulty 19 is a meta for farming grade 5s, but if you can clear higher difficulties quickly, they'll still be worth doing. Moving on, we're going to look at what testing stations actually have loot that's worth grinding for. Some augments can be found in every station, but many augments, like the GRDA 44 amplifier for shotguns, can only be found in one station. Weapons and armor, for the most part, are similarly limited to one station. First off, we have testing station 136, the fire-themed testing station. This is my favorite testing station, and it has a great loot pool. From here we can get the Perforator and Shellburster shotguns, 2 of the best weapons in the game, but there's also a fairly large pool of melee weapons, so you can farm a rapier or sword here too. Testing station 136 is also the only station that drops the Burning Blades, the new dual blade weapon. For armor there's Bulwark, a pretty good heavy armor set that gives dart resistance. The augment pool here gives SMG and drill shot augments in addition to other common augments. Next is my second favorite, testing station 152, the electricity themed station. There's a couple great ranged weapons here. The Regis triple shot repeating rifle, which is easily one of the best weapons in the game, and the experimental lightning gun, which is a fantastic shield breaker. Here we find some of the best armor too, like the power harness, a heavy chest piece that gives the bonus to max power, and the circuit gauntlets, heavy gloves that give a bonus to power efficiency. You can also find the Forge set here, which is a light armor set that gives fire and poison resistance. The fire resist it gives is great in testing station 136, but it's also good in this testing station, because all the lightning throughout the level, and from the boss arena, deals fire type damage. For augments, there's Rafiq Snubnose for the Seethe and Disruptor pistol. There's also Heavy Blade Adjuster and Edge Optimizer, which are augments for melee weapons that give a damage increase. Third is testing station 195, the poison themed station. Here's where you can get the Seethe pistol, the best headshot weapon in the game. The loot pool also has a couple useful PvP weapons, including the shield cracking Regis Disruptor pistol and the poison sniper Dune Watcher. The only good armor piece here is the X-Core leggings, which are a stamina efficient light armor piece. Jabal Spit Dart augments drop here, which I needed to get the most out of the triple shot, but you can also find some LMG augments that go into weapons like the plasma cannon. Testing station 89, radiation. Mostly you'll find people running this to get the GRDA 44 augments for improving their shotgun, but there's a few other nice drops as well. The Ambition is a great dual shot for PvP, and the Replica Pulse Knife is a nice melee weapon. This station drops the Pincushion set, a great light armor that comes with dart and blade resistance. Tabor soft step boots are great because they reduce worm threat when you're out on the sand. The Tactical Radiation Suit and Accelerator Power Pack that drop here don't have higher grade versions. If you want to farm them, you'll need to select a difficulty where ungraded items still drop. This means that you'll want to stick to difficulty 1 if you want to farm them, because at difficulty 5 and above, both of these items will no longer drop. Testing Station 24, Darkness. This station has a lot of enemies and the worst loot pool out of all the stations. You're most likely to find the Replica Pulse Sword here, so it has that going for it at least. The Executor armor set is basically a worse bulwark, and the augments here aren't used that often. You can get the Elohim class Suspensor Belt here, best farmed at difficulty 1, but you're probably better off just crafting a full Suspensor Belt instead. You should run whatever station you enjoy playing the most, but if your goal is to get the best loot, then you can target specific items. My strategy in the beginning was to run Testing Station 136 until I got a graded shotgun. The first one I found was a Shellburster, and I used that shotgun to farm the other stations more efficiently. I mostly ran Station 136 Fire and 152 Electric, but I eventually moved on to the Poison and Radiation stations to get the weapon-specific augments that drop there. Here's a spreadsheet I made to help visualize how the drop rates change with difficulty. I've added in functionality for you to compare your runtimes, so you can see whether it's worth raising the difficulty. Let's say that we're targeting grade 5 gear and ran a difficulty 19 in 10 minutes. Then we ran a difficulty 30 and it took us 15 minutes. We can put in those difficulties and the times, and the spreadsheet would tell us whether it was worthwhile or whether we're better off just farming 19s. There's some other things here, but anyone can download this sheet and poke around. It will be linked in the description. I'll do my best to keep this spreadsheet up to date, so if things change in the future, check back for the latest info. I've also updated the Weapon Augment Optimizer spreadsheet that I first shared in my tier list video. I fixed some issues it had, and added a way to compare durability efficiency for loadouts. For example, we'll look at a perforator build. Here you can see we've already selected Heavy Caliber and GRDA 44 Amplifier, and now we need to decide what to use for the third augment. We can put in an expander, which gives us better sustained damage. By looking at the durability efficiency, we can see it takes a little hit because of the expander's damage penalty. Let's compare this to a different build by swapping in the GRDA 44 Optimizer. We can see that we take a hit to our sustained damage, but we get much better burst. Because we're doing more damage per shot, our durability efficiency is a lot better, so we'll be able to use the weapon for longer before it breaks. This doesn't mean that the optimizer is better overall, but I wanted to give people the tools they need to make the choice that's best for them. Finally, we have a new spreadsheet I've made for armor. You can pick all the pieces and augments individually, or use a quick check to see how things will look with the same augment in every piece. I've added a way to see your effective HP to better understand how strong the armor actually is. You can put in your combat level and vitality skill rank to factor those in as well. I'll update this sheet with new information in the future. The weapons and armor sheet assume max rolls on grade 5 augments, so they're mostly just tools for theory crafting, but they can still help point you in the right direction at lower grades. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can like it and subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment below and I'll do my best to answer them.